All right, so I have a Octimate court here. Obviously, the center square is in blue, and we have the outer ring in yellow, and then everything in the outer space here is either green or white. Um, and so if you notice, I put dashed lines through where the stakes are. The stakes are these small yellow, sorry, small red circles, and I basically slash them through so they're parallel to the center box. Um, So if you notice, this creates this like uh, large outer square in a sense. So it's essentially cut through the octagon here. Um, and I also, and in each sort of sideline, so if this is a sideline, right, each sideline is now kind of split into three parts. And I'll talk about each part separately. But this little video is about strong and weak space, just for the outer offense, and where essentially to prioritize keeping the disc when you're in the outer offense, and where to take shots from. So the reason, like one of the best things about cross shots is they are easier to make. They're essentially just shorter than shots from the center. And a lot of times, they're quick, so um, you can essentially get a cross shot off before the defense has time to block the stake. Um, However, there's only certain regions I think you should be taking cross shots from. Um, so if you notice here, so these dashed lines, they split this outer offense, this outer space, into sort of like three regions you can take shots from. There's this green space, which I like to call the strong space. There's this space in X, I marked with an X, which is just the weak space where you should never be taking a shot from. And then there's these side spaces, which can vary depending on where exactly the disc is, which I'll talk about last. So ideally, you want to always keep the disc in these green triangles. This is the strong space. The reason for this is because this shot is shorter than any, is equal or shorter than any shot you can take from the center. That's the big key here, because if you have a shot that's longer than the center, you might as well just throw a scooper to the center and line up that shot, since the center always has an open option. So that's the number one reason. Number two is because in this space, you have a better angle for a continuation. So if you're in this space, then if you try to take a shot this way, there's more open space. There's more open space for another cutter to cut out and catch the disc on a continuation, whether you or not you hit or miss. If you're over here, right, you have a short shot, but if you either hit or miss, this is going right into the defensive space. There's no chance at a continuation. So this space is best for continuation possibility. The X space is no-go. You should never be taking a shot from this X space. Whenever you're here, the one thing you should be looking for is a reset into the strong space. The reason for this is because A, this is a long shot to make, longer than the center shot. B, it's targeting this defensive space. So a lot of times what happens is, like, if you try to take a shot, even if the stake is open, by the time the disc gets here, there's a defender that's coming from behind, and they have all this defensive space to just try to get the D. So whenever you're in this space, or you realize you're on offense and you realize one of your players has the disc in this space, you always want to be looking for an immediate reset to the strong space. Um, Resets should never be cross field. You should never go for a cross field reset, because typically, you want to get into this strong space, and if you do a cross field shot, it takes a while to get across the court, which drives the stall up. B, it's hard to get it into the strong space. So typically, if you try to do a cross field reset, you're just going to end up into another weak space. So it's just not worth it. And B, you're better off just trying to center it and resetting the stall, because it's just an easier throw to make. So if you're ever in this reset space, especially if you're in a high stall, just try to hit the center. If it's a low stall, or off the first throw, you want to look immediate reset to the strong space, meaning your cutter should be coming into this space from either side of the field. So a note about the strong space is the fact that this space is on the inside of the stake. So if you're in this space essentially, anytime you take a shot, there's going to be more offensive space behind the stake than there is defensive space. So being on the inside of the stake is obviously the best for continuation. Now, these light green areas around the strong space, um, they essentially create an option that is more on the outside of the stake than on the inside of the stake, right? Just it's like a borderline shot. So there's still a lot of defensive space back here, but it's not as bad as like if you're out in this space or this space. Um, so these areas are like partial strong space. They should still be considered valid options. One thing, especially that Luke points out a lot, is the fact that you can take a step out. You can either do a step out backhand, like from this space, you can step out backhand and throw it, or do a lefty backhand from this space and throw it. The problem with those is I think having a long motion for your throw um, gives the defense a lot of time to react. And the great and like the cross shots are best taken like right away if you can, because typically those are scores that when you have instant throws, if you give the defense the time to react, and especially since they're way up here, they have time to not only react to your pivot but also to the throw. It's not always the strongest thing to do. Um, However, this space is still should be utilized. You shouldn't either look to reset or instant center from this space. Should still look to either hit this cross shot because there's a lot of you're on the inside of this stake, so um, you can this is still a valid option for continuation, and it's also it's basically a center shot. So and especially if you're low, if you still have more than 4 seconds to throw the disc, it's better. Taking this shot, it's better than centering it because obviously the center only gets 4 seconds to throw. So if you're only at stall 3 or 4 in this space, this is a valid option. And the great thing about this shot also is the fact that so even though it's on the outside of this stake, it's a very like short shot, particularly if you're on the border here. This is a very short and high completion possibility. So there's a high scoring chance on this shot. So that's why this option should always be taken. And it's also an awkward position too because you can't really reset it. There's no point of resetting it like 2 feet into this strong space. Um, and centering it here doesn't really accomplish much unless you're at a high stall count. So this space should always be utilized unless all options are covered. Um, so that's strong and weak space. I will get to triangle offense next.